Welcome to Martini Time. I love this time of day. It's, I love having a martini with you. That's what it is. So, watching the news, as we all are, there's one word that's being thrown around a lot, suddenly: moral authority. The president doesn't have moral authority. The Republicans are saying. What is moral authority and how does it rise up? I asked that question. We all know what morality is. That's the ability to tell right from wrong. So what's moral authority? How does that happen? Now, you know, I keep talking about double binds and catch-22. I keep talking about it because it keeps revealing itself to me. And it's a fundamental principle or way of understanding how we are who we are and how we create either violence, or we either do violent things or creative things. America is a very creative society and a very violent society. And this catch-22, the double bind, is, what I've described very simply. A double bind is a situation where you are in a lose-lose choice. You're damned if you do and damned if you don't. And we all get ourselves caught in those. It's called the horns of a dilemma, where you're stuck with each horn. No matter what you do, you're screwed. Those are very bad places to be. People shoot themselves to get out of those double binds. But they also are the ingredients for a creative leap. So what I'm suggesting tonight is that the double bind, the catch-22, is the necessary conditions for moral authority to rise. Moral authority is not something you get. It's something that must spontaneously happen. Suddenly, you've had enough. Suddenly, you say, like the senator said during the McCarthy hearings, that just kind of like tipped it over, turned it a turning point. See, moral authority happens when there's a turning point. And he said, "Sir, have you speaking to McCarthy, who had been given the enough rope to hang himself. He was just going mad. Sir, have you no decency?" And suddenly everything turned. So the moral authority comes at a tipping point when you've had enough of relative authority, relative morality. So what's the difference between moral authority and relative moralism? Well, relative moralism is what Trump exercises when he creates everything into me versus them. I'm true news, I'm the real news, you're fake news. So everything moral, the tipping point, false equivalency creates its relative moralism. It's a right and wrong that is reference to something relative. So when you have Trump saying that you're fake news and I'm real news, that judgment is relative to him. And then, of course, the news says, well, I'm real news and you're fake news. You see, so that's relative to their viewpoint. So you have two views, two perspectives that are, from our point of view on the TV, equivalent. And that's where we have been stuck for the last 50 years. In relative moralism. And that creates false equivalence. Because you end up by saying Both sides are wrong. Both sides are doing it. Trump says, well, Obama did it. You see? So everybody's doing it. The Democrats did it. The Democrats had slaves. Lee had slaves. Everybody had slaves, so it's okay. See, this false equivalency is a double bind. Because when you're caught in false equivalency, you've lost your moral compass. Now this brings the question, is there such a thing as a moral compass? Or is everything relative? Do we come to a point when we say enough? Do we come to a point when we just do the right thing? Do we come to a place or turning point where doing the right thing just spontaneously happens and we just do it? It's a compulsion. I just have to do the right thing. Excuse me a minute. Somebody's at the door. I'll be right back.
I'm sorry it took so long.
That's all right. Take care. Okay. Okay, I'm back. All right. Moral authority, then, is a spontaneous rising up of the realization that you've had enough and you can't take it anymore. You see, enough. Can't take anymore. So that just kind of like, it rises up out of the exhaustion, the frustration of false equivalencies or relative morality, where each side is right. You see what I mean? When each side is right, the left is right, the right is right, the conservatives are right, the liberals are right, everybody's right, and everybody's wrong. You're wrong, I'm wrong, you're right, yada, 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 yada. That's relative moralism. At some point, you just slam your fist on the table and say, enough. And shatters it. It's a feedback loop. Wow, 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 wow. How do you stop a feedback loop? Bam! Moral authority. Somebody speaks with authority and says, enough. Usually it's, in the old days, it was the father. And the kids are quibbling, yada, 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 yada. Enough! Stop it! You see? And everybody goes, oh, you see. That's the president's job. That's the president's job, because when you have a democratic nation like ours, you're going to have squabbling. You're going to have relative morality. I'm right. No, I'm right. No, I'm right. You're wrong. I'm right. No, I'm right. You're wrong. Yada, 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 yada. And the president says, enough. Enough. And he speaks from his moral authority and transcends the duality. You see, so moral authority transcends the catch-22 of the opposites that can't choose. You see. And when moral authority speaks, your heart resonates with it. Yes, that's true. Yes, we have to do that. That's the right thing. That's doing the right thing. And so that's the president's job, you see. But our president is locked in relative moralism. And that's what's frustrating the nation. In fact, it's frustrated everybody for 50 years. Because the Republican Party has made a strategy out of relative moralism while they're pretending to be the moral authority. The Republican Party has created a party of God, a party of moral authority. But it's a relative morality. Because it's based on the liberals being absolutely wrong. The moral authority for the last 8 years was that Obama is absolutely wrong. And we're right. That's a relative morality. It doesn't transcend the opposites. It doesn't transcend the pair of opposites, the left and the right. So moral authority transcends the relative morality of left and right, you see, of liberal and Republican. You see what I'm pointing to here? Moral authority is transcendent authority because it leaps out of the relative morality and creates a one voice. It creates the Word. It creates God's Word. It creates, in the King's Speech, it creates the voice of the King. It speaks from the center. It speaks from the heart. And it stops the moral reality because the absolute contains the relative, you see. See, we've fallen into this relativity where each side thinks they're the absolute. So the left says, I'm absolutely right, and the right says, I'm absolutely right. Everybody's absolutely right. On Facebook, everybody's absolutely right. Well, there can't be multiple absolutes. But in the frustration, these are all relative absolutes, relative truths, you see. So in the field of competition, in the field of American democracy, there is relative morality. And this should evolve and evolve through competition to create higher understanding, and it will create a moral absolute. But this moral absolute doesn't mean this is forever. It just means in this situation, in this moment, this is the truth, and this is what we have to do. We cannot, in other words, the moral truth, the truth says, this is it. We have to do this. This is what we're going to do. We have no choice. So moral authority brings us to the point where we have no choice. And that becomes not a calculated action, but it's a spontaneous action where your mind and the body become one, and you just do it, like the Nike commercial. You just do it. You just do moral authority. There's no equivocation. There's no debate. There's no argument. And, oh, should I do this or that? I don't know, yada, yada, yada. That's the double bind. Lose-lose. In moral authority, there is no lose-lose. So it's kind of like the moral authority breaks the logjam. And the president, in the construction, in the way we've designed our society, is the one with moral authority. And ideally, he does the best he can with the conditions that are given. Okay. So, but Trump, you see, has risen to the top by playing the game of divide and conquer, or moral or false equivalency, or relative morality. You see, he has probably never experienced moral authority in his whole life. Everything has been relative to him. See, moral authority is not relevant to any of the parts. You got two halves. Moral authority is not conditioned by one or the other, is not relevant or referencing one or the other. See, moral authority references something that is higher than the competing or conflicting parts. Moral authority references the one that includes good and bad, relative good and bad. You see how that works? You got each side says, I'm good. GOP says, I'm good, you're bad. Left says, I'm good, you're bad. So you have a good bad and a good bad, but they're reversed. You see? So they dance like Fred and Ginger. And if that gets stuck in a feedback loop and it can't evolve, they can't come to the two competing dance partners can't come to harmony. If Fred and Ginger can't come to harmony with the music and they keep stepping on each other's toes, somebody, the choreographer or the director, would say, enough. Get in step. You stop this stepping on each other. Each one trying to lead, you see. Stop trying, each one of you can't lead. Get in harmony with the music. Get in harmony with the one. Get in harmony with God or truth. Then you dance together. So moral authority references us to the whole, to the one that has no second. Relative morality is one with a second. I'm the one and you're the second. You see? So it's divided into the horns of a dilemma. It's divided into two conflicting opposites, each with a different point of view. Each one is referencing a different worldview. And when they're balanced, like we've been for the past 40 years, the whole country just goes, wah, 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 like that. We can't evolve. We can't evolve, you see. And that becomes an intolerable situation because life is evolution. So if we can't evolve, we're not in tune with life. We're in tune with death. Instead of going forward, we're regressing. Instead of solving problems, we're creating problems. Instead of transcending problems, we are generating problems. In a circle. The snake eating his tail, you see. And this is what's killing America. This is what's killing us because we feel this, because we know instinctively what life feels like. When you're in a sailboat and you're in a doldrums and there's no breeze, there's a languishing, and then a wind flaps the sail and the boat moves. You know what that movement feels like. That's life. Or the woman who feels the first kick of the fetus. That's life, you see. Moral authority is that kick. Moral authority is the kick of life. It gets the thing going. Gets you out of the doldrums. Gets you out of the feedback loop. Gets you out of the bickering in the Civil War, you see. The Civil War was a catch-22. And so we look at Lincoln and put him on a statue because he had the moral authority to transcend the war. In his Gettysburg Address, he transcended the war and created a new nation in that address. Created a whole out of that. But since then, we have a part of the nation, a part of the political system, has adopted the paradigm or the strategy of relative moralism in order to maintain power at any means. I wrote about this today, going back to Goldwater. When he was defeated by LBJ. LBJ went on to pass the Civil Rights, which triggered the reenactment of the current Civil War. The Civil War reenacts in new form. And so when the Civil Rights Act was passed, that activated the Confederate mythology. And what was Goldwater's famous phrase? Extremism in the pursuit of liberty is no vice. Well, if you translate that into the Republican Party, extremism in the pursuit of political power is no vice, which means any means to the end. Any means in the pursuit of power is no vice. You see how that works? So if you can look at the Republican Party, it's pursued power, and the dream of power is getting the president and getting the Congress and the court and the Congress and the Senate, the presidency and the Supreme Court. That is the Holy Grail. And look what happened. Republican Party has disintegrated. It's disintegrated. It's caught in its own catch-22, infighting. You see. So this pursuit of power, by any means, is, well, it's kind of like, we all know how this works. Any means to, it's like if I want to get to happiness and I'm going to use hurting other people in order to get to happiness, when I get to happiness, I'm going to be unhappy. The means I use to get to the end are what I'm going to be at the end. You can't separate them. When moral authority rises, the means and the end are one. When creativity rises, the means and the end are one. They're not separated. When you spontaneously speak out, when you spontaneously stand up for what is right, no matter what the cost, when you stand up for what is right, no matter what the cost, you see, that is the coming together of the means and the end. The means and the end are one. That's what moral authority means. Relative morality is separating the means to the end. So I'll do anything I need to do to get to the end. Whatever the end is, anything goes. Well, when you arrive, you never are. You have become the means that you used. And it's going to be destructive. So you can look at the Republican Party, self-destructing. Obviously, the getting the power they wanted, they're not powerful. They are the means that they use to get to this point where they have absolute power. You see what I mean? So they have arrived at absolute power by extreme means and ended up with vice instead of virtue. Virtue is not separating the means from the end. Vice separates the means from the end. Any means possible, any means to get to the end. So anyway, I just wanted to reflect on these because this moral authority has been echoing around, bouncing around, and everything is reaching a point. There seems to be. Of course, we've reached this point before. When will Trump turn? When will it all fall apart? And each time it seems like he won't survive, and then he does. But at some point, there is a turning point. There has to be a turning point. The feedback loop cannot go on forever because it keeps building. Feedback loop means that when you stick a microphone up in an amplifier, it goes wow, wow, wow. That means that the energy, these opposites, feed each other energy, so they grow on their own energy. It's an expanding energy. Whoa, it's like that's what the atomic bomb is. It's energy expanding with no check. So the feedback loop is like an atomic bomb. It goes, wow, 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 stop it, you see. There's no check on it. There's no governor. There's no check and balance. It's a runaway train, you see, a runaway engine. So Trump is a runaway engine. There's no check. So at some point, moral authority has to rise and say enough. Stop the train. Stop the bomb before it goes off. That's basically, kind of my formula for what's going on. So that wow, 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 is not endless. Physics says it can't go on forever. It reaches a point where the whole system explodes, where the system cannot contain the energy it's generated. That's what happens when your engine explodes, or the nuclear power plant explodes. The system can't contain the energy that's running away. There's no governor. Wow, 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 wow. So Trump is like a runaway engine in there. Wow, 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 you see. And the only thing that can stop it will be moral authority, not from Trump, because he isn't going to have it. You see? He's actually saying, unconsciously, stop me. I can't stop myself. That's why he's self-defeating himself. He self-defeats because he can't stop himself. And he knows it. He's out of control. He was in control. He could control the energy up until he got to the presidency. But the presidency is a different condition than his real estate deals. You see, he was okay in that. He was successful in that. He thought he could apply those strategies to the presidency and get to the penthouse where we wouldn't have to do it anymore. And he discovered that there was a whole new set of conditions, and his strategy as a campaigner is not working as a president because the job requires moral authority and he doesn't have it. For him to have moral authority, he would have to give up his personal authority, the authority that made him Trump. That's a double bind. He would have to give up himself in order to be himself. You know, that's kind of a Christian thing. You have to die in order to be saved. But Trump's not going to die because he would have to give up the power that brought him, that gives him the energy to be president. You see, he doesn't. It's like the cocoon, like the worm, like the caterpillar, has no idea what the butterfly is. So why should he give up and die when there is absolutely no certainty what the butterfly is? He has no idea what it is. So Trump has no idea what the presidency is, because he would have to die in order to discover that. He would have to give up his Trump ego in order to be the president. The president is an egoless office. You leave your personality, your persona, your ego at the door. So anyway, thanks for dropping in, and I'll see you tomorrow morning.